So I finally saw The Great Gatsby last Friday night. I know this video is kind of late. I'm making this on Monday night. Saturday I was really busy doing nothing, and then on Sunday it was Mother's Day. I had just finished the book not too long before seeing the movie, so it was nice and fresh in my head. I usually don't let myself see movies without reading books first. So the movie opens up with the opening credits, and we got this really fancy writing and everyone's name, and then we see The Great Gatsby, and there's this flashing white light, and I sat in the movie theater, like, if that doesn't turn green and get smaller, that is a waste of a flashing white light. And it did. And then we have this water. We're going over water, and we hear Tobey Maguire's voice in the background reading the opening lines of the book in this really depressing voice. In my younger and more vulnerable years. I thought it was like an old man talking. And then we find out that he's in like this mental institution or a hospital talking to a therapist or a doctor or something. He's looking out the window and we have snow. It's very depressing scene. So then I guess he gets this inspiration from the doctor to write the book, and then I guess that's what we start seeing, is him just writing the book, which I don't know. It was kind of weird thinking about it that way, but I guess there were parts in the book that kind of led you to think that way, that it was someone talking to a reader rather than just someone's story, like the narrator was conscious of someone reading. So then we kind of go away to this montage of New York, and I feel like it was like we saw old New York footage, and then we saw new New York footage, and it was just like poof, poof, all over the place, and we had shots of Gatsby's parties, and it was just insanity. The Gatsby parties, by the way, they looked so cool. That would have been so fun to be an extra in this movie. I was like, what am I watching right now? And there was like modern music being remixed in the background and talking about the 20s, so everything was cheaper and better. You have all the awkward movie descriptions of what the West and the East Egg are and the Valley of Ashes, and trying to get people who are only watching the movie to understand what's going on here in this establishment. It's not until like a good maybe half hour into the movie that we actually see Gatsby. We see his back, we see his ring all the time, and then we see him holding this tray, and then we see his ring again, and he's got this like big grand introduction. I am Gatsby. Big explosion, fireworks, music goes crazy, everything, the whole scene just goes insane. Old sports. There were 49 old sports in this movie. Just saying, I didn't count, my friend counted. So Leonardo DiCaprio did live up to that big grand opening. I think the acting was really good. Gatsby's mysterious character, he did it really well. So the settings and stuff, and them in New York, and how they did the West Egg and the East Egg and Nick's house and Gatsby's house, I think that looked really nice. Where did they film this other than New York? The Valley of Ashes looked really nice, although I don't understand why we would randomly cut away to the Valley of Ashes like every 10 minutes. Like, we'd just be in the middle of this normal scene, and then we would get this like billboard of this. I understand the symbolism of the Valley of Ashes, but it was really overdone. Throughout the movie, a lot of things were word for word with the book, which I really liked. The dialogue was exactly how it was written. The things that happened, they were in order. Not a lot of things were left out. There were a few things, but not big fatal things. The movie looked really nice and it sounded really nice. I really liked their use of modern music and how they remixed it up. I even heard Alicia Keys in there. All of those sequences with that music and then the 20s feel, it was really nice. I think Nick's character was really well done. I don't think third wheel was a term when this book was written. I could be wrong, but if it was written now, I think that would be how Nick would describe himself. The way he looked in the movie, he was just standing there so awkwardly when they were there, and in the book, he's all like, they had forgotten that I was there and stuff. I was super uncomfortable for him. Him narrating the whole movie, it was nice. I think it works better for people who haven't read the book, but I don't know how I felt about like the words being on the screen, as if he was literally writing the book and we were just watching it being written. Voiceover's fine, but seeing words being written out of the book on the screen, I don't know. Like, he would read paragraphs from the book as they were happening, just describing to us what was happening. Like, you're telling the story through the movie. You don't really need to be reading the book on screen. I can understand like the opening paragraph and how people would want to hear that in a voiceover, and then the end. So we beat on, boats against the current, borne ceaselessly into the past. Like, I can see how you would want that in the movie, but it almost felt like we were leaning back on the book. That though is much better than altering things and changing them and taking the term making something your own a little bit too far. I think all the colors and symbolisms that they had in the book were all in there. Like, he had his pink suit, they had all of them wearing white when they were supposed to be. There was this one time early on in the movie when Nick comes to the Buchanan's house for dinner and he opens the door and these white curtains are flying everywhere, and I was like, really? This is really happening? And then you have Daisy and Jordan sitting on the couch in white. Tom was super creepy. He looked like Hitler. I'm about to spoil the ending if you're, for whatever reason, watching this and haven't read the book or seen the movie. So I went and told my English teacher that I watched the movie over the weekend. I didn't read this for English class, but my teacher has obviously read it because he's an English teacher. I don't think we read this until like junior year in my school, and I'm not there yet. Anyway, the first thing that he wanted to know was, who shot Gatsby in the movie? And I was like, well, George did. And he was like, oh, that's the easy way out. And I got thinking about it, and I was like, But in the movie, not knowing just would not have made sense because we didn't get that deep of a connection with the characters and we didn't exactly see what was going on there. Like, we didn't know all of those details about Meyer. In the book, it kind of gives us some sort of hint that George is the one that kills him. It could have been Meyer. There is that part in the book. He hires Gatsby's new servants, and then we see that a servant heard the gunshot and didn't think anything of it, which is kind of weird. Could have also been Tom ending his conflict with George over Myrtle, and ending his conflict with Gatsby over Daisy, and then running away. Credits to my English teacher for those. It wouldn't have made much sense to people who hadn't read the book. So I think George killing him was kind of the more simple way to do it, because that's how most people think it was. And there's no blood, like, at all. I didn't see any blood in the movie. That's not how shots work. Anyway, overall, I think the movie was really well done. It felt very big, like it was a big production. And most of the movie and the acting and the big production of it all lived up to that, and some parts of it didn't, and it kind of seemed like overdone and rushed maybe. But for about 90% of it, I think it was really great. The music was good, the cinematography, it was all really good. I think all the acting was good, the casting. Jordan Baker, her character, I don't know who played her, but she kind of reminded me of Uma Thurman in Pulp Fiction. And I didn't think of that while I was reading the book. I honestly kind of pictured her as like a butch lesbian with long curly black hair. But hey, I think every big symbolism and moral was brought out in the way that it should have been. Sure, there were a few things that were left out. Gatsby meeting Daisy's daughter, Owl Eyes, that old man that kind of shows up at the end. I really liked the movie. It was really well done, and I think that's all I have to say about it, so I'm going to go. Goodbye.